Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Uh, and Happy New Year. Coincidentally, this happens to be the first uh, webinar for 2025. And today we'll be dealing with a subject matter of interest. And I believe not only to Ghana, but to most African countries. Yeah, but we'll be focusing on Ghana as much as possible. All right. So before we go into the discussion, I think for the sake of first timers, it's important we tell you about the AfroSAFE Academy. And of course, this webinar is being organized by the AfroSAFE Academy. The AfroSAFE Academy is a deliverable of an AfroSAFE project, an EU, 4-year EU funded project on road safety in low and middle income African countries. And so the AfroSafe came out of this project, and it's a consortium or a group. The academy involves researchers and practitioners with a common mission of advancing research and education in traffic safety related issues, particularly on the African continent. So the AfroSafe Academy more or less provide a platform for us to exchange ideas and experiences and also share educational materials and also stimulate research and teaching collaborations among ourselves. Yeah. In terms of what we do, some activities we carry on are usually centered around scientific events, like, for instance, this webinar that we are having, and the many more that will come out this year. We also organize conferences. Very soon, I'll tell you of an upcoming conference slated for later this year. We also hold networking events, engage in publications, funding, and then education. In terms of education, we organize courses in universities, and we also more or less try to support road safety related curriculum in various universities. Currently, the team or the consortium is developing road safety related material for adoption in teaching traffic safety in countries all over, not just Africa. All right. And so by so doing, our aim is to empower and advance research. All right. If you visit the AfroSafe Academy website, which was shared in the very first page, you get a view of upcoming events. So like I did mention earlier on, this is the very first webinar for the year. And then I also did mention of some scientific events we organize. So later this year, in August, we'll be organizing the second AfroSafe Academy conference to be held in Ghana, Winneba, Ghana. All right, and it's within the period of 12th to 15th August. Now the call is open, and so we encourage as many people as possible to submit abstracts. All right, I think the abstract deadline is sometime 14th March, so you still have the opportunity to submit abstract to the event. And of course, as researchers and as academics, the goal is to publish, to disseminate information, research like we are doing now. And so I will present to you the Traffic Safety Research Journal as another outlet, a good, of course, outlet to present your research. All right, so now to the event of the day, the very first webinar for this year. All right, and we'll have with us Professor Williams Akais of the Building and Road Research Institute of the Scientific for Center for Scientific and Industrial Research based in Kumasi, Ghana. Yeah, Professor Akal holds a doctorate in traffic engineering from the University of the German Federal Armed Forces, Munich. His research focuses on road traffic, intelligent transport systems, and traffic simulation. He has authored numerous papers in peer-reviewed journals, conference papers, and book chapters. So without much ado, I will give the floor to Professor Akar to share with us his research on the state of road safety in Ghana. And in so doing, we are all reminded that after his presentation, which is usually 30 minutes, we'll have the opportunity to engage with him. I wouldn't call it question and answer, but an interaction, so that whatever you have to ask or to say, you have the opportunity to do so. And we can do that in two ways. First, you can put your comments in the chat box, which we can read out and then get his responses to them. Or you may indicate by raising your hand. You'll be called upon and given the opportunity to share what you have. All right, so without much ado, Professor Akar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'll share my screen. Okay. So as has been mentioned, I'm presenting on the state of road traffic safety in Ghana. And this is going to be the format of my presentation. What I'm going to do is to give a brief introduction to the topic, and then I will describe the approach which I'll use to establish the state of road traffic safety in Ghana. And then by doing this, I'll look at the burden and identification of the safety problem and come up with conclusions and recommendations. As we all are aware, road traffic crash is a byproduct of the transport system. As we travel, we will in some way get involved in a road traffic crash. If you do accident modeling, it tells us that the only time you can say you expect zero number of accidents or crash is when you have the traffic volume to be zero or the road length to be zero. So that's when you have the exposure variable to be zero. If these exposure variables are not zero as we travel, then you expect to have some number of accidents on your road. But this must be effectively managed. If you don't manage it very well, you get a lot of people dying, and you'd want to avoid that. Looking at the global status report on road traffic safety, you realize that road traffic crashes in the developed world is going down, whilst in the developing countries, we having a surge in the number of deaths on the roads. Looking at Ghana here, our estimation tells us that road traffic crashes cost the nation, if we should use the 2023 figure of GDP, it means it cost the nation $1.2 billion US. That is, we've estimated that it represents about 1.6% of our GDP. And using the 2023 figure, this is what it is coming to. This is the approach I'm going to use. I will define the burden and then the nature of road traffic crashes or the casualties. Here, I will look at the outcome data, which is the crashes, and then also look at some observational data, some risk factors which we've studied over the years, and then identify the road traffic safety problems. We look at how the policies and then the enforcement are going. The governance structure of road safety in the country, we'll also look at that. Funding sources, we'll look at that. The national road safety strategies which we have developed over the years and how we fare with these national road safety strategies. Okay. So I would want to give a brief history of the National Road Traffic Crash Database, which is hosted at the Building and Road Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. We started road safety research somewhere in the 1960s. Between the 1960s and 1980s, staff of the institute will do a routine research activity, visit police stations, and then collect road traffic data and come up with their research report or papers. At the inception of the Ghana Road Safety Project in 1987, we institutionalized the accident data collection. So as we speak, we have data from 1991 to 2022, and I'm going to present some of this data to you as we move forward. And so you can see the National Road Traffic Crash Database on your screen, and this is where we collect the data and then keep them. We now go through the accident data collection system. Of course, we have different sources of road traffic crash data. You can talk of hospital data, you can talk of insurance data, and others. But what we have been using over the years is the police data. And we believe that is very comprehensive because you get information from the casualties. The police also visit the sites, and so you have information on the route. Sometimes the police invite exams officers from the driver and vehicle licensing authority, so you have also information as to whether the accident was as a result of a mechanical failure. So we believe that is very comprehensive, and so that's what we use when we go to the police station to get the data. We come to our office, code them into our software, and we're using the micro accident analysis package for the data storage. And here we're able to code the crash location, the collision types, and so many variables. So this is the software we use, the map software. Here, after the coding, we're able to validate whatever is happening in there. And then we do our analysis, several analysis, which can be done. We can do the link node analysis. We have the crash maps, kilometer post analysis, and then stick diagram analysis. So there are several analysis which we can do with the software. After that, we produce a report and send it to the National Road Safety Authority. Since they have been given a support for the data collection, when we send it to them, we expect that they will forward it to the other agencies and all relevant stakeholders. Okay. With this data, obviously, there are some limitations. And what we have identified is that we have some level of underreporting. And this is coming from two sources. The first one is non-reporting, where the crash is not reported to the police, and so the police don't have any information at all. And this, we realize that it's very much with crashes where the severity levels is very low. So if you have damage-only crashes, there's a possibility that the parties involved will resolve the issue without getting to the police. But what we've realized is that if the severity level is very high, if it involves fatality, then obviously it will be reported to the police. And there is also the issue of under-recording. We get the data from the police, and we've realized that sometimes you go and you are unable to retrieve the entire data which has been reported to the police from them. We're able to establish the level of under-recording, from the data which we have. And the level of under-recording for the year 2020 was 6%, which means that we were unable to retrieve 6% of the data which was reported to the police. And this we are able to do because when the crash happens, the first point of record is what the police call the registered motor traffic offense register. They put it in there. And so depending on the amount of files you are able to retrieve, then you are able to establish the level of under recording. Does this have any implication on the kind of data we're using? I believe that it is not. When it comes to the quantum, yes, the actual situation of the crashes in the country, then there are issues. But as researchers, mostly we do sampling, and we believe that whatever we have is good enough to give us a true reflection of whatever is happening in the country. So now we go into the burden and identification of the safety problems in the country. This is the trend which we have witnessed since 1991 to 2022. You realize that the trend of increase from 1991 to 2010 was very steep, but lately you realize that the rate of increase has reduced. So we have a flatter gradient as compared to the earlier one where the gradient was very steep. And so even though the trend shows an increasing trend, you realize that the rate of increase has reduced. And this is a big achievement as compared to the do nothing situation where the number of fatalities would have been far higher than what we are witnessing now. Still looking at the trend, we first look at the number of crashes. Here, if you look at the data very well, you realize that it's increasing, but it's relatively flat. Yes. Yes. Yeah, can I go ahead?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so this is with the number of crashes in the country and then the rate at which it is increasing. We also look at the rate of increase in the number of population. Just like we're getting some feedback.
Yes, please, can we all mute, with the exception of the presenter? Thank you.
Yes, so this is the estimated population, which is also increasing, but relatively flat. Let's look at the rate of increase in the number of registered vehicles in the country. You realize that the number of vehicles registered in the country is increasing very, very fast as compared to the number of crashes and then the estimated population within the country. The number of registered vehicles is somehow following an exponential trend, which we need to look at. We will now look at some indices. The first one is what we called the traffic systems risk, which is the number of fatalities divided by 10,000 vehicles. And from what we can see from the graph, you realize that the traffic systems risk is decreasing. So what it means is that the number of people being killed, they are not increasing as compared to the increase in the number of registered vehicles. So even though we are having huge number of vehicles in the country, a very large number of vehicles in the country, the rate of increase is not as we haven't. That's why we are seeing a decreasing trend. Because you are dividing by the number of vehicles, the rate of vehicles is very low. The rate of increase in the number of vehicles very high. we getting a lower figure for the traffic systems risk, which shows that it is decreasing. Now, fatalities per 100,000 population here, you realize that it's following an upward trend. This is the public systems risk, which shows that we have people dying in our population. And then one very, very important indicator which we'll have to look at is the fatalities per 100 casualties. And this is how it is looking at. It is increasing. And this is very serious because the fatalities per 100 casualties means the number, if you take 100 people being injured in a road traffic crash, how many of them get killed? So now, let's say in 1991, we were having 10 out of 100 people being killed. So if you have 100 people being injured in road traffic crash, you have 10 of them being killed. And in 2022, we have more than 10, almost, let's say, 15 being killed. And this is very serious because we were expecting that now that we have the Ghana Ambulance Service, we have improvement in our medical system, we could have saved a little more lives as compared to the year 1991, where we didn't have all this in place. And here, what could be the explanatory factor is that maybe we haven't increase in the speeds of vehicles, and so when there is a crash, we have so many people dying per the 100, and it's the same as the fatalities per 100 crashes. So this is the indices which we're doing, which means that we need to improve on our emergency response system. People get involved in accidents, all right. If they get injured, we should be able to save a little more lives instead of letting more of them die. And so we should improve on our emergency system. Now we will look at the road user class with the highest share of death. And here I'm looking at the average for the 3-year period 2020 to 2023. And you realize that the road user class, which is more likely to die in traffic, is motorcycle. They constituted 31.2%. And we will look at the trend in a few slides. And then pedestrian constituted 31.3%. So these are the road user class who are likely to die in traffic: motorcycle, pedestrian. And these two classes constitute almost 2/3 of all the deaths we are experiencing in traffic in the country. So if you are able to tackle these two, motorcycle, pedestrian, we solve 2/3 of our problems. And the third one is buses, which constitutes 17.1. But mostly when we hear of road traffic crash, it's when there is a bus involving killing about 20, 25 people, and then the whole country come together to talk about it, to discuss it. But those are not where people are dying. If you are to go for targeted interventions, we should be looking at motorcycles and pedestrians, and this is where we have a lot more people die. So over the years, let's look at the trend by the road user class. What we have known is that pedestrians has constituted the road user class with the highest share of fatality. So always they were first, and that is what we knew. And so up to 2019, pedestrian had constituted the road user class with the highest share. And motorcycle, which is now killing more people, was at 7 in the year 2002. And then it started moving up the ladder. So by 2003, it's moved to 6. And it's continued moving up. 2005, it was 5th. It moved to 4th in 2010. The years which have been omitted, there were no change in the ranking. And so I removed them. 2011, it has moved to third. 2014, it has moved to second. And 2020, it was the road user class with the highest share of fatalities. And this is very serious. We'll just look at the trend at which it is increasing. In 2022, again, motorcycle moved second, and then pedestrian overtook it again. So these are the road user class killing people. And formerly, motorcycles were not in the equation, but they've now moved up strongly. And if we don't do anything about it, it has the potential to derail our road safety agenda. So let's look at how the motorcycles moved over the years. First, we look at the accumulated number of registered vehicles for motorcycles alone. So from 2002 to 2021, there has been over 1,200% increase in the number of motorcycles being imported into the country. And then looking at the corresponding fatalities, fatality also increased from 2002 to 2021. It has moved to around over 1,800% increase in the number of fatalities involving motorcycles. So as the number of motorcycles being imported into the country increases, there is a corresponding increase in the fatalities. Formerly, we didn't have what we call the rickshaw and then the tricycle as part of our transport mix. What we knew as motorcycle was the motorbikes, right? So when the rickshaw and then the tricycle started increasing, there was the school of thought that it was those type of vehicles which were increasing the number of fatalities involving motorcycles, because the database then was combining the rickshaw, the tricycle, the motorbikes as one class of vehicle. So we did segregation somewhere along the line, and then we realized that it was the two-wheelers, the motorcycles, the two-wheelers, the motorbikes, which were killing the people. 85% of all fatalities are as a result of the two-wheelers. Just the tricycles were constituting 13%, and then 2% was as a result of the rickshaw. And the explanation here is also not far-fetched. And because the motorbikes travel at very high speeds, they make a lot of dangerous maneuvers. And in the case, mostly not wearing helmet, and so in the case of a crash, they die. And so if we want to reduce the number of deaths from motorcycles, our attention should be on the motorbikes. It is killing 85% of, it is constituting 85% of all the deaths which is coming from motorcycles. So that is it. We look at the road user class by the road environments. And here, looking at the trend from 2001 to 2022, you realize that the first one is pedestrian, constituting a huge percentage. In 2001, pedestrians were constituting almost 67% of all fatalities in the urban road environment. And as we moved, it has reduced, but it's still very high, constituting around 44% of all urban road fatalities in the year 2022. So let's look at the other road user class in the urban road environment. The second one is car occupants, which is also constituting a significant percentage. And then we have heavy goods vehicles. Buses follow in that order. Motorcycle, you realize from 2001 has been increasing and is now taking a huge percentage of death from the urban road environment. And then we look at pickups, cycles, and then the other mode of vehicles. We now look at the number of fatalities in the non-urban road environment. Still, you realize that it is pedestrian leading here in the non-urban road environment, but it's not as much as we have in the urban road environment. And this should cause us to make targeted interventions looking even at the road environment. And then this is followed by cars. And then we have heavy goods vehicle also constituting some percentage. And buses, you realize that people are dying in buses in the non-urban road environment. That is where people are dying and not in the urban area. Then again, motorbikes starting very low in 2001, but increasing in its share of fatalities as we move to 2022. And then you have cycle, pickup cycle, and then other modes of transport. So this is how the picture is looking. As you move from the road environment, you realize a change in the number of people killed in the different road class. Here we look at the collision types, which is killing people, killing casualties in road traffic clash and then crashes, and then realize that pedestrians constitutes the highest, hate pedestrian collision constitutes the highest, and this is followed by head-on collision following second, and then vehicle run off road in the third order. Hate pedestrian collision constituting the highest because we don't provide for pedestrians when we do our road construction. All our major roads are single carriageway, resulting in head-on collisions, and then the runoff roads is as a result of excessive speeding or poor design on our roads, resulting in this type of collision. So these types are killing more people: hate pedestrian collisions, head-on collisions, and runoff road. And the underlying cause is what I have explained. There again, there is a big problem looking at the time these crashes occur. Daytime constituted 55%, 55, let me say 56%, and nighttime constituting 44%. You realize that the traffic at nighttime is very low. So for nighttime constituting 44% is very problematic. And if we should look at the hourly rate, you realize that the hour where people die more is between the early nighttime hours, right? Between 6 p.m. and then 8 p.m. That is the highest. That is where you get more people dying. In terms of what's the explanation, you realize that all our major routes are single carriage. The Accra Kumasi Road, Accra Takoradi Road, and all those are single carriage. So you tend to have some of these dangerous maneuvers taking place, resulting in head-on collisions. More people are dying at night time because our street lights are mostly not working. We design the routes without any provision for pedestrians, without any road line marking, which doesn't cost much. And so we tend to have some of this problem. That is the road infrastructure resulting in crashes. We analyzed the data there again, and then we looked at what road surface type are resulting in the crashes, and we realized that majority of this is when the road is very good. That is where people are able to speed, and in the case of a crash, the consequences is severe. And in a case where the road is tight, then you have few potholes. It came in second with 20.9%. When the road is not good, usually the traffic is very low, and then you then tend to have more accidents. So we need to build new roads, but we also need good roads, but we also need to make sure that we've put in the safety measures to control these accidents. Analyzing the data again, driver errors, which are attributed to the police for causing these crashes. The first one is inattentiveness And this is a result of the drivers performing other tasks from the driving tasks, like watching their mobile phones whilst driving. And then the second factor, which was attributed to result in fatalities, is the driver driving too fast as compared to the driving environments. Yes, that is excessive speeding. It also constituted 28% of all the fatalities. And this we will look at when we come to the observational data. And driver vehicle defects. The data is also telling us that about 10% of the crashes as a result of some defects on the vehicle, like the brakes, steering issues, tire bursts, and all those, resulting in about 10% of the accidents in the country. Under the Bloomberg Initiative for Global Road Safety, we looking at some risk factors in the cities of Accra and Kumasi, and so I will present some data to you. We're looking at the rate of helmet use, the rate of seatbelt use, and speeding. We were supposed to do drink driving, but because of the COVID, we couldn't do that. So we have all the laws as a country. The Road Traffic Act, for me, is one of the comprehensive laws you can have. We have laws covering seatbelts and all the risk factors you can get, including child restraint seats, even though we see people driving around without child restraint seats, but we have laws covering all those risk factors. So the first one I would want us to look at is seatbelt use. And here, the overall seatbelt use in the city of Kumasi is just 15%. It's just 15%. So you just have 16% of passengers using their seatbelt. That's the overall. Drivers are more likely to use their seatbelts, that constitute 25%. And then passengers are less likely to use seatbelts. The average for passengers is 5%. And so there is a huge opportunity here for us to increase the safety on our roads by enforcing these laws to make sure that everyone comply with the laws. There again, speeding observations in Accra since June 2015. We have been gathering data every 6 months, and this is the trend. In the year 2015, about 81% of all vehicles traveling within the city were exceeding the posted speed limits, and this has reduced over the years. And in October 2023, the speed data showed that 47% of drivers are exceeding the posted speed limit. And this is also very dangerous, considering the fact that we have mixed traffic where usually you have pedestrians not being provided for, and so they have to mix up with the vehicular traffics. And then helmet use, there again, you have the Road Traffic Act making it compulsory for everyone, whether you are a pillion rider or a rider, to use helmets. But this is the numbers we getting. For all occupants, you have about 45% of them using helmets, but just 36% of them are using it correctly. Even though you have 45% using the helmet, just 36% are using it correctly, because somebody will have the helmet on with a chain strap, but he will not strap it. And so in the case of a crash, the helmet will even leave the person before the person gets to the ground. Drivers are more, or the riders, they are more likely to wear the helmet, 54%, but just 44% wear it correctly. And when it comes to the passengers, the pillion riders, just 6% are effectively wearing the helmets. And this is the problem we are having. In terms of governance of road safety activities in the country, what I would say is that Ghana has one of the best structures in road safety governance in the road safety governance in the whole of Africa. We have the National Road Safety Authority, which is in charge of coordinating all the activities of the ministries and then the agencies and all the supporting stakeholders. And now they have all the powers to force some of these agencies to comply with the safety situations. And so in terms of governance, I would say our structure looks very good, and we have one of the strongest when it comes to road safety governance in the whole of Africa. And this is how it looks like. The National Road Safety Authority is supposed to coordinate the activities of the different agencies under the different ministries in terms of road safety. So Ministry of Transport in terms of the rolling stock, the vehicles, DVLA, Ministry of Roads and Highways, that's the road agencies, Ministry of Interior when it comes to the police in enforcement, and Ministry of Health when it comes to emergency responses, and some other ministries may also be involved. But the National Road Safety Authority is supposed to coordinate the activities of all these institutions. In terms of funding of road safety activities, my sources say that the National Road Safety Authority is able to get money from the government of Ghana, the National Insurance Commission, DVLA, and then donor funding like the World Bank, and sometimes the World Health Organization is able to provide technical support. And looking at budgeting, always in a country like Ghana where you always have limited resources, you have issues. But the data I have here shows that in the year 2020, the National Road Safety Authority was able to receive just 42% of the budgets which they sent to the government, just 42%. But this has increased over the year, and last year, 2024, they were able to receive 66.3% of the budget, the money they needed to perform their task. They received just 2/3 of that money. Obviously, there are some shortfalls when it comes to getting money to do some of these activities. We are able to construct expensive roads, but when it comes to putting in measures to control the safety, it's just like we are always moving behind. Ghana has had 4 national road safety strategies. The National Road Safety Strategy 1 from the year 2005 to 2010, National Road Safety Strategy 2. The first strategy was from the 2000 to 2005, second 2006 to 2010, and then the third strategy was for 10 years. That's from 2011 to 2020. And now we have a 4th National Road Safety Strategy, which is from 2021 to 2030. And all these, the third one, for instance, was done in accordance with the UN Decade of Road Safety, which said that we needed to reduce number of fatalities by half by the year 2020. But all these national strategies with its implementation plans, which we set for ourselves, we were unable to come close. So as an example, the National Road Safety Strategy 3, for instance, we were to reduce fatalities on a year-on-year basis and then achieve less than 810 fatalities or less than 1,000 fatalities by the year 2020. But this was the actual. So our target was to get 810. But at the end of the National Road Safety Strategy 3, the number of fatalities was 2,528. We were nowhere near our target. And all the national road safety strategies has faced the same challenge. The problem is that yes, we come up with the target, but what we need to put in place to make sure that the accidents are reduced, we are unable to do them. In concluding, I will say that yes, Ghana has one of the best road safety structures, but the number of deaths in the country remains very high, um, recording over 2,000 fatalities is still very high. And pedestrians and motorcyclists are the road user class with the highest share of fatalities. If we are able to solve this, we solve almost two-thirds of all our problems. And key challenges include unsafe road user behavior, drivers exceeding posted speed limits, pedestrian jaywalking, and the vehicle is also a problem, and then the road infrastructure for us to construct roads without um, functioning street lights and all those are resulting in the death of people. There is also a funding gap for road safety activities, and despite all the laws which we have, we are unable to enforce them. So it's very common to see people driving motorbikes without helmets and all those. My recommendation is that we need to pay special attention to pedestrians and motorcyclists if we are to achieve the targets which we have set in the National Road Safety Strategy 4, and particularly on motorcycles, even though we know it's illegal, everybody's using it without any issues. So we need to have a policy framework, and then a holistic approach is required to improve the safety situation in the country. Then when it comes to the infrastructure, enforcement, road user behavior, vehicle standard, and our emergency response system. Thank you. I'm ready for any discussions which may come up. Thank you very much for the presentation.
All right. Thank you very much for a very wonderful presentation. I think so. Now we have a few minutes. Can we be more efficient in this? If there are comments, questions, you can put up your hand, and then you have the opportunity to ask them. You could also bring on board suggestions. So yeah, anything. It's not just questions only. All right. Philbert, go ahead. You are muted.
Thank you so much for a nice presentation. I have one question regarding the motorcyclist, because we see that the helmet use is below 50%. So what are the challenges in place regarding the enforcement of helmet use, particularly among motorcyclists and their passengers? What you can comment about it? And what should be done to improve the helmet use among this group? Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So let me respond to this. I thought that this should be very easy. I mean, we have laws, and so we have the police, and it's the responsibility of the police to enforce it. But is somehow looking at is a challenge, which I don't understand. And it's not just only with the helmet. We have excessive speeding, seat belts not used, for instance, is also a major problem. I think that the police should be up to task, and then enforce the law. I mean, if somebody commits an offense, it's an offense, and this person should be punished, right? But as I mentioned, it looks like there is some laxity when it comes to this enforcement, and so everybody is doing this, and nobody seems to care.
All right, good. Any other, Akwesi, you have a comment, question here. Can you ask it?
Is is the question in the
Yes, so let me
chat
read it.
box?
Yes.
Okay.
What is the road accident rate per capita, and what has been the trend?
And so I showed the rates of crashes per population and then per the registered. Sorry, I just want to move there. Okay. Yeah, so this is the indices we having. When we talk of fatalities per 100,000 population, we're getting figures around 13. That's the last year. That's 13 fatalities per 100,000 population. So that is the indices we're getting. And I think I showed them during the presentation. Thank you.
All right, good. So in your presentation, you mentioned the underreporting, but
Yes.
we are also interested to know, particularly for Ghana, what is the underreporting crash severity? So for fatal, serious, minor, and property damage only.
Yeah, so that's a study which we've done, and then we've published this. We can check on the internet under reporting of road traffic crash data in the country. That's a study we've done, and so you can check. It was published by myself and then Professor Mohammed Salifu. And yeah, I may not be able to give you the figures, but we've done that, and then everything is in that report. So if you can refer to that would be fine.
Yeah, I have that study, but I was wondering if there's something new. I mean, the study was sometime 2012 or so.
Yes, we did something. You know, the WHO has been putting up some figures that fatality rates in the global status report, the fatality rates in Ghana, for instance, is around, the number of fatalities is around 6,000, which I don't believe anyway, because what I know that there is some level of under-recording where we are unable to retrieve the data. But for under-reporting or non-reporting where there is death and the police don't get to know or it's not reported to the police, even though there is or there may, it will not be up to the 6,000 which the WHO is reporting. And we did some study for them recently, myself and then Dr. Derry. The recommendation that what we found was around 1.4%. That is around, you needed to multiply what we have now by 1.4% to get the actual figure, but not the 3 times which they were reporting. Yes. That is for fatalities, but when it comes to the less severe crashes like damage only, it's usually high because most of those ones don't get to the police. If you run into someone's vehicle, usually there is a gentleman's agreement to settle the issue out of the police station. And so, yes, when you get to the less severe crashes, but when it comes to fatalities, I mean, we all live in Ghana here. For a crash to happen, for somebody to die, and to say that out of those ones, you just have 1 out of 3. If you take 3, you just have 1 being reported to the police. For me, I won't believe that. Yes.
All right, thank you. Philbert.
Thank you. I just want to ask about follow-up questions regarding the estimates from the WHO, especially
Yes.
on the number of fatality per 100,000 populations. But I do wonder know exactly about the definitions of death. How do we define the road traffic death? Because actually, it depends on the definitions of road traffic death. Also, it could also.
Apparently, what we have been using is the WHO definition: 30 days from death within 30 days from the time of occurrence of the crash. And that is the definition we've been using here in Ghana. 30 days from the time of occurrence from the crash. So if the person dies within 30 days, it will be considered as a result of the crash. But if it's after 30 days, then we do not include it as part of the crash. So that is the same definition being used by WHO, and that is what we use here in Ghana. Thank you.
And a follow-up question, if you take one on that one, regarding on the other rate of how many people are dying outside the health facility, because you know we still in Africa we still have the home death also. Because, for example, when you look on the death in Africa setting, there still have a large number of deaths also, which is happening outside the health facilities. In Ghana, in particular, can you say something about it?
So as I mentioned, when a crash happens, when there's a fatality, the police is where we get the data. They are supposed to make a follow-up. And so if the person dies, let's say outside the health facility, after 30 days, obviously our definition is that it shouldn't be included. But if it's within the 30 days, outside the health facilities, it is mandatory for the person or the families to report those deaths to the police. So that is what I know. But as to whether some of this data is included, yes. As I said, when we did our level of underreporting in this new study we did, actually it was commissioned by WHO. But apparently when you submitted the report, they were not happy about it because it didn't confirm the 3 times whatever which they were expecting. Yes, I agree that there's some form of underreporting in it, but not to the 3 times which we were. What we found, as I mentioned, is 1.4 times. So let's multiply our official figures by 1.4, and that's all.
All right, good. Thank you. Yes, Kwame.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Prof. Thanks for the presentation, Prof. One thing crosses my mind about the issue of reporting crashes. One of the key things I think we usually don't pay attention to is the likelihood of resorting to insurance companies as the potential source to validate the extent of crashes. I'm not too sure the state we are in Ghana, but if you can throw some light on the extent to which these crashes are reported to insurance companies for claims or whatever as a source of validating the various crashes we report across the country, and the extent to which these insurance companies may also serve as a source of alternative source of funding to alleviate the multiple costs associated with crashes across the country. Thank you. I don't know if you have data, but I will be happy to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so as I mentioned in the sources of funding, I mentioned the National Insurance Commission as one source of funding. I think they are in touch with the National Safety Authority, and so they provide some source of funding. And as I mentioned that we have different sources of data. We have the hospital data. You can have the insurance data. You can have the birth and death registry. But in Ghana, what I know is that before you can put in a claim for an insurance, you need a police report. So invariably, the police will have to know about that accident before you get to the insurance company for your claim. You need a police report before you get your insurance. And so the data which is known by the insurance company is also known to the police. But that is also another form of data source. Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
Good.
Prof, I think there was a second question I asked, whether or not these accidents are usually reported to the insurance company for claim purposes as an alternative source of funding to alleviate the cost of crashes.
Okay, so what I also mentioned is that I know the National Insurance Commission gives some source of funding to the National Safety Authority to fund activities so that we reduce all these accidents. Yes, so that is on the source of funding. But on the reporting, again, you have to get a police report before you get to an insurance company to get a claim. Before you get the police report means the police have it. So what I think is that all these claims being sent to the police is in the police data, right? Yes. And there is other sources like the vital statistics, birth and death registry, for instance. There again, before you go and register someone as you register somebody to have been killed by a road traffic crash means we need a police report, right? If you get to the hospital, for instance, before a postmortem is carried out, there should be the presence, a police person should be there. But, well, some of these accidents could have been, or some of these deaths could have gone without the postmortem or whatever. We should harmonize our data, harmonize the hospital data, harmonize the police data, and all this. Yes, that is something we need to do to make sure that we don't lose any of the data from our database, because every of this data is very important, even if it's for research purposes, right? So we need to harmonize our data, the police data, the hospital data. But now I would say there are some issues. When I tried, there have been some issues which I will not want to go into it now.
All right, good. Very soon we'll draw curtains on this today's webinar, but I think we have a final question by Akwesi. The question is, where is the density of the different accident road users? Which regions or cities are recording what size of the accident? I don't know whether you get the import of the question.
Yes. I actually had that in my slide, but I had to take it off because I thought I will have so many data. Obviously, different regions, different crash rates. For now, I can provide you with the data if you request, or if you send me an email, I can send you the report. But what I can say is that when it comes to fatalities, you have Ashanti region recording more deaths than any other region. But when it comes to number of accidents, you have Greater Accra recording more accidents or more crashes than any other region. And the reason is that Greater Accra, is mostly urban. And so you have a lot of low severity crashes, like people in traffic running into the rear of other. Those ones are not very severe as compared to Ashanti region, where the region is very wide. You have a lot of trunk roads, people speed, and then they tend to die in road traffic crashes. Yes, so we have the accident severity by region. Ashanti region having the highest fatalities, but when it comes to accident, you have Greater Accra region recording more accidents than any other region. I can provide you the data if you send me an email. Thank you.
All right, so does that also represent the behavior, I mean, of the inhabitants, I mean, the road users?
No, we can't do further studies, but what comes to mind is that it's no, because you see, you have a lot of congestion in Accra, and especially when you are in congestion, you tend to have some of these low severity crashes, right? But in Ashanti region, you have a lot of trunk roads, and on the trunk roads, that's where more people die. So if you look at the accident severity by the road environment, you realize that you have more people dying in the non-urban routes, because that is where speeds are very high, and in the case of a crash, the consequences tend to be severe.
Yeah, so it's a matter of the road use behavior, sort of.
No, I don't want to go into that, because if you go on the non-urban setting in Greater Accra, you realize that the accident rate or the number of deaths is also very high there. But if you come to the central business districts, you will find in Kumasi, you will find a similar characteristics of these low severity crashes in those congested area as Accra. I don't know whether you get my point.
Yes. Anyway, it's open for further.
Yes.
All right. So Akwesi did a follow-up, and that will be the final question for today. Is there any anomalies in the study that you were surprised by?
So we've been surprised. Anomaly, I don't know whether that is an anomaly, but what we were surprised for me is that when motorcycles overtook pedestrians as the road user with the highest share of fatality, because from what I've known over the years, it's like it's always pedestrian. And by the time we realize motorcycle have overtaken pedestrians, and that is a serious issue we need to deal with if we are to make sure that we come very close to the strategy which we've set ourselves. That is the National Road Safety Strategy 4.
All right, good. Thank you very much, Professor William Saka, for such a wonderful presentation. Of course, an eye-opener. You've given us thoughts. I mean, and I agree with Lee Randall that the data presentation and visualization, I mean, it's also spot on, something people are going to learn from. And of course, they telling us about the state of road safety in Ghana, right? As researchers and academics, we all have responsibility in making our roads more safe. Like we say, it is a shared responsibility. So once again, thank you very much for doing us this honor. And just to repeat, there will be more of such engagements. So the next one, I don't know, Philbert, do you have any information on that?
In March, the next one will share the information on our website. AfroSAFE Academy will be in March, so we'll share advertisement on our website.
And then other channels. All right, thank you. And I also want to remind us of the upcoming conference to be held in Ghana. More details. In fact, we started floating advert on it on our website and various media platform, LinkedIn and all of those. The abstracts are still we are still open for submission. So far we've received some number, but we still need more. So share that with your colleagues. I posted the website, the web address in the chat box. You may want to share that with colleagues. I mean, together we can promote road safety on the African continent. Once again, we wish to thank all of us for finding time to be part of this webinar, and we look forward to having you on the next webinar, which is sometime in March. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Okay.
Bye-bye.